It's the electorate that's always closely watched, with voters in Eden Monaro more often than not foreshadowing the result of the federal election. The seat is currently held by Peter Hendy, but is being recontested by the man he toppled at the last election, Mike Kelly. Today, the Prime Minister took his campaign to the South Coast to show his support for Mr Hendy. Political editor Chris Uhlmann.
Gumleaf playing is an underappreciated art form. But the bellwether New South Wales seat of Eden Monaro was Malcolm Turnbull's stage today, and he came bearing gifts for the port and airport.
The extension of the runway is going to be very important.
Star power isn't enough. A federal election is 150 races, and it will be won or lost in marginal seats. A lot rests on the hard work and appeal of the local MP.
Well, please vote for Peter on the 2nd of July.
Okay.
In a sure sign the coalition is worried about losing Eden Monaro, 5 ministers have visited in a fortnight.
Do you know Peter Hendy, the federal member? Yeah.
No, I've never met Mr. Hendy.
You live here?
Yeah.
There was trouble of another kind on the airwaves when the Health Minister distanced herself from the decision to freeze Medicare rebates to doctors.
I've said to doctors I want that freeze lifted as soon as possible, but I appreciate that Finance and Treasury aren't allowing me to do it just yet.
Word flashed across the Nullarbor.
Its own health minister basically saying Labor's policies are better than those of her own government.
It was left to the Prime Minister to reinterpret.
It will end when we judge it is affordable within the context of the health budget. And that's all that Susan is saying.
Bill Shorten was in Western Australia, a state where Labor has underperformed for years, promising $1 billion to extend rail lines.
Real jobs, real money, delivering for the public transport needs of Perth.
And while yesterday he brushed off a crackdown on tax deductions for politicians who own homes in Canberra, today he pledged to scrap it.
I don't think it's fair.
The government cried backflip, but clearly doesn't want to be branded as defending privilege, and the tax office is reviewing the ruling.
And we'll have a look at exactly what he's proposing.
There'll be many battles in the 39 days ahead, but the one blow the coalition is determined to land is that Labor is big taxing and big spending.
He's the grievance man. He's got a complaint about everything, and the solution is always to spend more money.
That is a big lie, and I'm calling it for what it is.
Before this campaign is done, the truth will out. Chris Uhlmann, ABC News, Canberra.
I spoke to Chris Uhlmann a short time ago and asked if the Liberals are worried about losing Eden Monaro.
Yes, Craig, they are, even though the margin had improved on the last election because there'd been a redistribution of the seat. Mike Kelly, the former member, is a formidable opponent. There are great concerns about how Peter Hendy is travelling inside the coalition, and you only need to look at the signs on the ground. The Prime Minister was there today, as we mentioned in that report. Other ministers have been going through on a very regular basis. So everything is indicating that Eden Monaro is hanging on a knife's edge in this election.
Well, the list of big Liberal Party names visiting the electorate is growing, as you suggested. Do any of these high-profile visits actually make any difference to the voters when they come to cast their ballot?
Well, they do attract a lot of attention, a lot of local media attention, which means that the local member does get a bounce from that. They quite often come bearing gifts, as we saw with the Prime Minister today. So all of that does play for the local member. But there's a saying in politics, which you will have heard, Craig, you cannot fatten the pig on market day. If the MP has not done the work over the course of the last 3 years, then if they're already in trouble, it's unlikely that these visits are going to help them that much.